Like I say, man, I may be wrong, but I do think them two youngsters that killed each other in my neighborhood, I think they was in the same gang. But like I say, man, it ain't the only time when I remember when I first got out on probation. I had caught a case here in San Antonio, and the probation officer sent me back to Chicago. My first night back, I saw a shooting, and it is a hell of a story because it wasn't just a normal shooting. But shootings is normal in Chicago. You're used to it. But I had been gone for 3 years, and what surprised me, because I had been in Texas, and in Texas, they treat murders very different. Somebody get murdered down here, they mourn. And up in Chicago, the dude, and these were two brothers in the same gang, as a matter of fact. Everybody always blame everything on gangbanging. It had nothing to do with gangbanging. It's about black anger. It's about anger. These black men have anger, and I'll get into that into a second, man. Explain some of my anger and rage. But my first night back in Chicago, man, dude jumped out of the car, ran up to us, and he turned in the alley, pulled out two. I don't remember what it was. They was like chrome 9. They might have been 9s. They might have been 45s. I think they was 9s. I'm not sure. But he pulled out two guns, had a big ass smile on his face, ran up to us, turned down the alley, and just started licking shots. Blah 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 blah. And man, he lit that alley up. And the shooting, man, it was messed up. It was kind of, it wasn't a good welcome home. I wasn't really happy to see that my first night back home. But the thing that messed me up more than anything was the reaction and the aftermath of the shooting. Now, fortunately for me, at least, I know a lot of y'all, black people versus nigga stuff. I know a lot of you black people would say, oh, that nigga should have died. But luckily for me, he actually lived, man. I was real glad that the brother that got shot survived that. And but the thing about it that was crazy, one, police never showed up. And man, dude shot bullets, man. I mean, he had to shoot at least 15 to 20 shots. And this is a neighborhood heavily policed. Police never showed up where this shooting happened. And it was almost like a party had happened after that, man. Everybody was yelling out the window, what happened? Who was that? Oh, what them niggas do? Oh, blah, blah, blah. It was like a big joke and a big party, man. And I was just like, what's wrong with you niggas, man? It was crazy to me, man. Because they was all clowning, man. And the dude that got shot, he wrapped himself up with a t-shirt or a towel. He wrapped up his arm. And he just was hanging out. He didn't go outside. He went to walking around the neighborhood, man. And, it was these reactions. The same with them two youngsters that killed the last time I was up there. See, I'm talking about that first time, that shooting I saw. That happened back in 1998, I think. 97. And the last time I was there was in 2000 and... maybe 2009, 2010. And that's when them two kids killed each other. And they went to school with my nieces. And of course my nieces, they wasn't happy about it. They was upset about it. Because one of them got shot, and then like a few days later, the other one got shot. And so my nieces, they wanted to be sad for their little friend, their little classmate. And they got the reaction that I had got when I was younger. I remember when I had first heard about one of the big homeboys getting shot, man. Some of my older relatives was real messed up about it. It was like they was rubbing it in, like, yeah, he was a bad actor anyway. He was a bad seed, man. He was a bad influence on you anyway. It's basically they were saying that, it's good he did. And it's the attitudes in Chicago. As long as the right type of niggas get shot, everybody's cool with it. They make jokes about it. You know, Lil Yummy, man. Lil Yummy Sandifer, man, died 11 years old. And he was intentionally shot. But you know, he wasn't pretty. So, you know, they didn't have the same reaction. They didn't have rewards out for his murderer. They really wasn't tripping on that. You know, it's crazy to me, man. Unlike this little girl that recently got killed, unlike Hadiya Pendleton, you know, Lil Yummy, man, his parents, they wasn't from the best neighborhood. And they didn't have money. And they weren't able to send her to a good school. And Lil Yummy would have never sang at the president's inauguration. So, a lot of people had that same attitudes towards Lil Yummy. He was a little gangbang. He was a little killer, man. It's a good thing they took him out when they did, because he would have just grown up and killed more people. And I was watching the coverage, you know, watching all these videos about the little girl, man, watching news reports and press conferences. And the thing that really bugs me about the little girl, man, and the way her family and these activists are basically saying that she ain't like the other niggas that deserve to die. The 14,968, I believe, that have died in the past few years. Since in the past 4 or 5 years, literally hundreds, over 300 Chicago school children, Chicago CPS children have been murdered. And hundreds more, probably thousands, have been shot. I don't have the exact number, but remember, for every murder, man, there's 10 to 100 shootings. For every murder, there's 10 to 100 people that get shot. So, you know, the murders are actually down. You know, when I was when I was doing, you know, when I was out there, man, there was actually way more murders. But it's kind of hidden in the math, because now there's way more shootings. It's just these days you're much more likely to survive a shooting if you're lucky. If you're not, like, I got a video on my YouTube channel when I was working on a documentary. I went back to my neighborhood and we was talking about George, man. They call him GD George, man. And I know George, man. I've known George since we was kids, man. I went to school with George. And they say that he got shot, and the police, first of all, they waited a few minutes to after they made sure all the shooting was done before they even went in that direction. And once they got in that direction, and I got witnesses, you can look at my other YouTube videos from a couple years ago, I got witnesses talking about how the police waited a couple minutes to even go in that direction. And once they got to the scene where George was laying there bleeding to death, they just was laughing and joking for another 20 minutes before they called anything in, man. You know, they didn't like George. The police in the neighborhood, they didn't like George. And they was really, you know, from all accounts I got, they was happy that he got shot, and they was happy to watch him die. And it was one less problem for them to worry about. So, let's say you somebody like George. Barack Obama talk about making all these strict gun laws, and you live in this neighborhood, and let's say you a friend of George's, and you know that this happened, and you notice the police attitude. They got this one less nigga attitude, one less nigga we gotta worry about attitude. You know the police, not only do they not want to protect you, but they rooting for your demise. They rooting for your downfall. Your gun laws ain't gonna keep guns out of their hands. I guarantee you. You know, I could tell you several stories about my first few guns when I was a teenager. You know, my first handgun was a .38 Special Undercover Snub Nose. And I got that when I was 18. I might have been 17, but I really think I got that when I was 18. My next gun was a Glock 45. And I may be mistaken, but I do believe at the time Glock 45s was banned guns all around the country. I might be wrong about that, but I know I got a Glock 45. I know I didn't buy it at no gun show or no gun store or nothing like that. I got it from a dude. And that's the thing, man. There is a war on drugs. And it is a real war. But most Americans don't look at it like it's a real war. And they don't care even if it is a real war, as long as the front lines stay where it's supposed to stay. And that's one thing that's bugging me about the coverage about this young girl, Hadiya. I hope I'm saying that name correctly. But this young Pendleton girl. You know, it really seems to me that everybody is saying that, you know, we got to get this dude off the streets, because he ain't just killing niggas in the hood no more. He's crossing over and he's killing black people on the other side of State Street. So that's my problem with the whole. It's not the, you know, I had no problem for anybody mourning or covering her or supporting her, or even wanting to catch the killer, man. But it's the language. She didn't deserve to die. She had taken her finals. She was smart. She sang for the president. She wasn't one of these little hood rats. She wasn't one of these little girls out there shaking her ass. She wasn't one of these little girls sleeping around with everybody. She wasn't one of these little girls who grew up in a foster home. She had good parents. She wasn't one of these little girls that was adopted. She had good parents. They had raised her right. She was smart. So I guess basically what you're saying is that you really wish that bullet would have went in a 15-year-old girl back of a girl that was a little hood rat, a little dumb broad that was going to probably end up knocked up soon. And long as it would have went up in her back, you know, man, I go on and on, man. My auntie got shot and killed on Christmas Day when I was 5. And I don't think they ever caught the killer, man. My other auntie, my foster auntie, she got shot in the neck. I got a homeboy, he was a teenager when he got killed, and nobody mourned his death. I mean, even people in the neighborhood, people that was close, man, it's almost like they was celebrating that he died. Got homeboys, you know, it's a shame, man. I know where more brothers I went to school with are buried than I know where they live. I know how to find more dead brothers in Chicago than I know how to find living brothers. And the few brothers in the neighborhood that I do know, a lot of them, they survived shootings. They've been shot. And man, how dare Barack Obama talk about these stricter gun laws? We got to get these, you know, all my homeboys that are walking around, or in some cases rolling around, you know, all these dudes in Chicago that have been shot by people who were not arrested. And you gonna tell them that they can't have a gun. Man, you smoking. Man, y'all must be smoking crack. You must be smoking crack. You can't keep crack out the neighborhood. And like I say, it's a war on drugs. The front lines, long as the war and the violence stays in the front line, long as it stays in these overcrowded black neighborhoods, these overcrowded Hispanic neighborhoods, and long as it happens where the white trash is, everybody's cool with that. But hey, if you middle class, you upper middle class, your children don't deserve to get shot in the streets. Hundreds of children have been shot in Chicago in the past few years. Hundreds of kids the same age as this little girl have been shot over the past few years. Literally over 300 kids in the past 5 years have been murdered in the streets of Chicago. And people talk about making stricter gun laws. When you make stricter gun laws, it's just like the rule with drugs. Soon as you make it stricter, you send profiteers in the way. Just like any war throughout history, anytime you have a war and you restrict something, you send the profiteers, and the profiteers are going to do their thing, man. They're going to try to make their money. And like I was saying, man, my first gun, I was 18. My second gun, I got later that year. It was a Glock 45. A banned handgun. I don't know if it was banned everywhere, but I know it was banned in most places, that Glock 45. That Glock 45, I actually got caught with that, committed a robbery. Luckily for me, the police are pieces of trash, and my gun somehow disappeared from the evidence room. So that really helped make sure that I didn't go to prison, because I got arrested with a really nice gun. So they let me out on probation. They sent me back to Chicago. What do you think was the first thing I wanted to get before I went back to Chicago? I knew that I wasn't going to no nice neighborhood. They talk about how this girl lived close to where the president lived. I don't know where the president lived, but I know it wasn't nowhere around any place I ever lived. So yeah, before I got released on probation, I was 19. First thing I did, I went and got me another handgun. I rode the Greyhound bus to Chicago with a pistol in my pocket. And I was going back to the hood, man. I know I got enemies. I know I can name you some enemies. I can name you some people that would love to see me dead. And hopefully not to this day, man. I've been out of the circulation for so long, man. You know, but you know me, I'm the type of dude, man, I don't even want my enemies dead. As long as they not gonna kill me, you know, I'm far away. I'm far removed from that. So I really don't wish death on nobody, man. No, I'm lying about that. I do wish death on some people. You know, and like the Sandy Hook school shooting. A few kids got shot in Sandy Hook. What am I supposed to trip about that? Like, y'all the president, man. You know, Barack Obama be pissing me off, man. So he'll address Sandy Hook and the school shooting there. But what about all the school shootings in Chicago? Sandy Hook is a drop in the bucket, but you know what? Those kids at Sandy Hook, those look like the kids he went to school with. I don't know if you guys have read Barack Obama's book, but he says he was introduced to the black community at 15. And from the way he's acting as president, he didn't really like the black community that he met once he met them. Because he don't give a damn. He's not going to end the war on drugs. He's not going to slow it down. He's not going to do nothing about the war on drugs except make it rougher and rougher. Send more kids or send more police officers to harass these kids, man. Man, everybody think that they grew up in a drug-infested neighborhood, but say, man, look, if you did, you did. If you lived in a neighborhood where you heard at least one gunshot a week, then you could say that you grew up in a drug-infested neighborhood. And think about children growing up in these neighborhoods. What happens to a kid once they're not afraid of gunshots no more? Once they lay down, they lay their head to the pillow and they hit them gunshots, and they don't wake up. They just sleep. They sleep in peace because they so used to it. That's what y'all need to worry about. These kids out there that grew up with this stuff, they grew up with these gangs, and they grew up watching these police with these brutal ways, running to these drug neighborhoods, shaking people down, roughing us up, man. You know, I was gonna tell a story about the good cop, bad cop, man. First time I was arrested, and I'm gonna keep it real short and simple. I already talked too long. But the first time I was arrested, I remember it was a white police officer, white man. Man, the dude slapped me in the face because I was talking back to him. And I remember that day, man. I was thinking I was 12. I was 11 when he slapped me in the face. And I was thinking, man, I can't wait till I could get a gun so I could shoot a police officer in the face. I want to shoot a white cop in the face. Because he wasn't the first white officer that was a dickhead to me, but he was the first one and the only one to slap me in the face like that. Now, since then, when I grew up, I did have a couple physical altercations with laws here and there. But I was a kid, man. I was little, man. And I had my hands cuffed behind my back. And this dude reached in the back of the squad car and slapped me in the face. And like I say, man, I couldn't wait to get a gun so I could shoot a cop in the face. And I got arrested shortly after that, man. I didn't have any underwear. You know, it's a long story about a nigga like me, you know. Come from foster kids on both sides. My stepfather started smoking crack, and everything fell to pieces, man. And you know, I had my foster brother and two foster sisters, my biological sister. It was 5 kids in the house, and my stepdad started smoking crack, man. Everything fell apart when that happened. And so I resorted to stealing, man. I stole a lot, man. I stole shoes, because the shoes, I remember I walked into Payless with holes in my shoes, and it was finna get cold again, man, and I had holes in the bottom of my shoes. I went to Payless and I put on some new shoes and walked up out of there. And I kept walking. We walked on the Ventures. When we got to Ventures, I didn't have on any underwear, so I stole some underwear. Well, in Ventures, they had these little dome cameras. I didn't know that they was dome cameras. But anyway, they recorded the whole situation, man. They arrested us. They put us in the security office. And they were sympathetic, unlike Chris Rock and all these other celebrities who talk about how much they hate niggas. These two security guards was actually sympathetic to us little nigga kids. And even though we was still in underwear, like I say, they was sympathetic, man. And he tried his best to not send us to jail. He tried to get a hold of my mom. He couldn't get a hold of my mom. So finally, after about 2 hours, these security guards, they really tried. They didn't want to send us to jail. But after about 2 hours, he was like, look, man, my shift is almost over, man, and I got a job to do. I can't get a hold of your mom. You going to jail. So he called the police, and they sent the police officer up there. And I never forget this police officer, man. I always consider him like the hippie police officer. He had one of those white guy afros and these hippie glasses, man. He was real sympathetic, man. He looked at us with sympathy. You know, when he looked at the security guard and he was like, what was they stealing? And the security guard put the underwear on the table and he was like, man, they were stealing underwear? You know, and all these dudes, they were sympathetic to us. Like I say, unlike Chris Rock, who hates niggas and wishes all niggas would kill each other, these officers was actually real sympathetic, man. And so the officer, I guess he was trained to work with kids because he actually talked to us like humans, unlike the officers that I had been encountering in the neighborhood that was real heavy-handed with us. And this wasn't nowhere near the neighborhood. We had walked a long way to get to this store. But this officer was real sympathetic, and I don't think he seen anything like that before, man. And he was like, so why y'all stealing underwear? What's going on at home, you know? And he asked us questions. He asked, what's up? You know, and I told him, you know, my stepfather had started smoking crack. My mom was working hard to try to take care of us, and we really didn't want Department of Children and Family Services to find out about this. We was all that we had, you know. These was my blood relatives and my foster brother and sister, but they was actually my blood relatives, and I didn't have no other blood relatives, you know. So we really didn't want the Department of Children and Family Service to come in and break us up. I felt really bad that I had messed up everything. But like I say, this officer was sympathetic. And y'all could say your comments, all your little racist comments about how he should have took us out back and shot us or whatever. But he probably saved some lives that day because, like I say, before that I had a lot of hatred towards white men and especially white police officers. But this police officer actually got in the car. He looked us in the eye and he said, did y'all eat today? And we lied. We told him we hadn't. But I couldn't tell him that, hey, man, on the way over here, we stole a little bit of food. We stopped in stores around stealing chips and ice cream and stuff. I didn't want to tell him that, so I told him we didn't eat that day. The officer took us to McDonald's, man. He bought me and my foster brother McLean Deluxes. Unlike Chris Rock, who hates niggas, like I say, this officer was real sympathetic, man. And he actually bought me and my brother McLean Deluxes. Soon as I got mine, I scarfed mine down, man. I tore it up. My brother, he held on to his. He waited till he got back and he shared it with his sisters. You know, my little brother, man, he always had a lot more compassion than people gave him credit for. But he took us back to the neighborhood and he drove around looking for somebody to drop us off with. And I was like, there's my sister right there. She was in the laundromat washing our clothes. And he released us to our sister. My sister promised that she would tell our mom. And she never did. I appreciate that, big sister. You know, and a lot of y'all, you know, you don't understand. You'll never understand. You know, and to some of y'all, the officer that slapped me in the face, that's the good cop. The officer that took me and my brother to McDonald's and dropped us off at the house, that's the bad cop. To a lot of y'all, he should have took us to the Hadiya home where we would have had to scrap with older kids and, you know what I'm saying, you know, get a little bit harder, hate society a little bit more. And that's the real problem to this violence. You got to get these young brothers, man, that grew up in this horrible situation and they hear horrible things all day. And you people out there, You people that mistreat these young black poor kids. You know, I remember growing up as a kid, we didn't dress like, you know, people could see us a mile away because of the way we dressed, the way we walked, the way we talked. They could see us from a while away. You ain't from this neighborhood. You're not welcome in this neighborhood. Every one of you that seen a group of young boys walking past your car and you push your power lock button, you think they don't hear that, but they do. Every time you do that, you add a little gasoline to that hatred. They say, man, I'm sick of these mugs. To every one of you police officers that handle kids roughly, run and grab a kid searching them for drugs. Every one of you that pull us over, man, and I got so many stories, man. I remember when I was always getting in trouble in high school, people used to always ask me, why are you so angry? And at the time, I was a class clown. I didn't see myself as angry. People used to always say that to me, why are you so angry? Why are you so angry? Maybe it's because I can't walk down the street without people calling me a nigga. Maybe they don't say it out loud, but every time I walk down the street and one of you little white bitches crosses the street so that you don't have to walk past me, and then I turn around and look and I see you cross back because we done cross paths, like I was going to rape you or something, man. I got a lot of stories of situations like that, and many of them was real rougher than that, man. Like I say, every time y'all do a little racist thing, man, every time you pull over a car, a white person's driving and a black kid is in the passenger seat, and you ask the black kid if he got an ID. Every time that ever happened, every officer that ever did that, you add fuel to that fire that motivates a young 18. And again, man, Barack Obama, man, you worse than these Republicans with their 3-strike laws. So you want to make these gun laws tougher. Man, when I was 18 and I had all them guns, man, I didn't know how to spell lawyer, let alone know what the penalty was for possession of a firearm, or a robbery, or burglary, or any of these crimes. You know, maybe you wrote this book, Barack Obama's book, The Audacity of Hope. In that book, he talk about education. Hey, bruh, you know, maybe you should find out what it's like, you know, for kids that go to school, public schools in places other than Hawaii. Maybe you should find out what it's like for the kids that go to the worst Chicago public schools. Maybe you should understand. And maybe you should teach law. You know, they teach us history. They teach us that we were slaves and that we couldn't do nothing for ourselves, and Abraham Lincoln freed us. You know, they teach us all this stupid history, and half of it was straight false. I hope they're not still teaching the BS they taught me in school about history, but half of it was lies and propaganda. And maybe y'all should cut history classes short and teach current history. You know, it might help if you teach some of these young black kids, man, in these neighborhoods where they got real high crime rate, what the penalty is for a burglary, what the penalty is for robbery. Maybe you should teach them what happens to a young or old black man that's been convicted of felonies, or what life is like once you have a bullet inside of you. Maybe that should be part of the classroom. You know, and that's another reason I don't support Obama. You know, I made a couple videos and I talked about why I could never vote for Obama, mainly because he won't end the drug war. And even now, this little girl got killed in Chicago because of the drug war. Ain't nobody talking about ending the drug war. They just talking about keeping the drug war violence where it belongs, out of the neighborhood where sweet little innocent girls get killed. It needs to stay where niggas is killing niggas. That's where the main violence of this drug war. Thousands of black people in one city, tens of thousands of black people in one city alone because of the drug war murdered. Hundreds of thousands in this country have been murdered in the past 20 years because of the drug war. Millions of people across this planet have been murdered as a direct result of the drug war. Talk about the little gangbanger, the little gangbanger punk think he's protecting his territory. This is not his territory. If we got to put a cop here 24 hours, 365, we'll do that to let them know that this is our park. Okay, well, we'll find somewhere else to sell drugs. And I'm not saying that as a drug dealer. I'm just saying that as common sense, man. You mugs must be retarded, man. So that's what you're going to do. You're going to make the gun laws stricter so that anybody, and that's retarded. You want to keep guns out of the people who don't have records. So where do the guns go? And this is coming from an ex-convict. I'm an ex-convict. I'm an ex-convict that committed a crime with a gun. I cannot legally own a gun again. So the only way I can own a gun, and I have, when I was on parole, I went to a gun show and I bought a gun. That's the first gun I ever bought from a gun show. I was in my 20s though. That's the first time I went to a gun show and bought a gun. Every gun before that I bought on the streets. And the thing about these guns on the streets is that when you buy them, you know more than likely there's been a crime committed with this gun. Somebody probably was shot with this gun. So I don't really care about shooting somebody else with this gun. And once I get rid of it, it's probably going to go to the hands of somebody that's going to shoot somebody with this gun. That's what these strict laws do. Chicago has had the strictest gun laws in the country since the Al Capone days. And people just getting shot left and right, shot left and right, shot left and right. And they're going to keep getting shot as long as this war on drugs is raging. And you know what? This is the part. If you watch the video to this part, now get ready to get pissed off. I hope that the violence continues to spread out of the ghettos. I hope the violence keeps moving further and further from these neighborhoods that have had enough. They've seen so much violence and murder that they don't even know how to act when somebody get killed around them. It's an event. It's entertainment. It's gossip. It ain't nothing to them, man. They so callous and they clown, man. They act fool, man. They be clowning, cutting up, and joking because there's no way. You know, what are they supposed to do? How you run out of tears after so many years, man. And after you lose somebody really close to you, you know, the casual murders, they don't mean anything. And that's the thing about Chicago, man. Most people, especially if you grew up poor, you know somebody younger than that girl that got shot. And their face was never on WGN, not once. Their face was never in the Chicago Tribune. Their face ain't even on the internet. Hundreds of children have been murdered in Chicago in the past 5 years. Name one of them. Name 10 of them. Name 20 of them. You can name every kid at Sandy Hook. And Barack Obama, he feels all of that pain for Sandy Hook. This can't happen. This can't happen no more. These white kids is killing each other, man. Columbine, oh my God. It's not just niggas killing each other. Oh my God. We got to look at everything. Maybe it's the rap music. Maybe it's the devil. Maybe, I don't know what it is, but we going to figure it out. Y'all ain't going to figure out shit because y'all are stupid. It's the drug war. As long as there is a war on drugs in these streets, it's going to be this amount of murders, man. Thousands of murders every single year. Sometimes in one city alone, thousands of murders every single year. Because they going to get that money as long as the money's out there to be got. And the sad thing about it, another thing that most of you don't know, is that the average drug dealer makes $150 a week. And Barack Obama, with this immigration bill, put another nail in more coffins. He wants to make it so that illegal immigrants who are using stolen social security numbers, he wants to make it easier for them to come out the shadows and them to walk with their heads up high and they could find jobs. What about a job bill for the ghetto, man? You know how hard it is to find a job if you put on that application that you live in one of the bloodiest neighborhoods in Chicago? You know how hard it is to get a job? Talk about discrimination. Barack Obama, man, you know, I always had nice things to say about you, and I always said, at least I respect him, man. I liked you as an author. I read your books. Got one of your books in the bathroom right now, man, reading it. I'm going to stop reading. I'm going to stop using it to wipe my ass. Because, you know, I used to always say I had a lot of respect for you, but these last two speeches, man, you talk about homosexuals and immigrants, illegal immigrants. You want them to be able to walk with their heads up high, and you sick of homosexuals getting discriminated against. Man, first of all, I don't know a homosexual. I've never met a homosexual that said he couldn't find a job. I've never met a legal immigrant that said, God, I can't find a job. But I know a lot of brothers, man, that put in a lot of applications. They get discriminated against because they don't feel comfortable if their pants are pulled all the way up in the crack of their ass with their belt cinched tight and they shirt tucked in. You know, Steve Harvey says because you're a faggot. You know, you're showing your butt crack. If you got on a tall tee and baggy jeans, you're showing off your butt. Well, Steve Harvey, you wear your pants up in your ass crack with your belt tight and your shirt tucked in, and ain't nobody got a problem seeing that ass of yours. So, you know, maybe you should put on some baggier pants, sag them, and grab a tall tee, because really, I'm sick of seeing your ass, Steve, while you talking. But that's cool? It's cool to discriminate against somebody because they don't dress like you, or because they don't pronunciate the way that you want them to pronunciate. That's cool. You can discriminate against niggas. Nobody has to give a nigga a job. And that's cool, it's fine. Niggas can't work constructions, but illegal Mexicans can. I don't know how many job sites I've been to in the past 5 years, and I bet you anything, brothers all across this country can say the same thing. You go to a construction site and you ask them if they hiring. And they say, no, they not hiring. And you see up there, they got all these immigrants that don't speak no English. You go up there a week later and you see some new faces. I thought you wasn't hiring. Oh, well, something had came open and you wasn't around. And so you want to make it easier for these immigrants that you say built this country. Well, Barack Obama, you know, I wanted to cuss you out for that one, man. Because unlike you, I'm not descended of African royalty. I'm not descended of the slave trade that you descended from. I'm descended from the other side of slave trade. I'm descended of slaves. And you say immigrants from Rwanda or whatever, man, immigrants from Mexico and Honduras, they built this country? No, son. No. My ancestors built this country. That White House that you in, that White House that you gonna go sleep in tonight, yeah, my ancestors, they built that. They built that. Not yours. Because again, I'm descended of slaves. Not the Nigerians that helped those slaves get up out of there. Yeah, they're my ancestors, the slaves. And I can prove it. Hundreds of years. Hundreds of years. My ancestors have been here for hundreds of years. And they built this country. They built plantations that they couldn't sleep in. A lot of these skyscrapers and these buildings, these super mega rich companies, my ancestors built these companies. Built plantations. These prisons, old plantations. My ancestors built them. Picked the cotton. Slaved. Was raped by their slave masters. That's why I look the way I look. That's why I don't look like you. I don't look like the type of African you look like. Neither do my ancestors or my relatives, my other brothers, the ones that your supporters quick to call niggas. You know, except I guess maybe you know, the Jay-Z's and the Beyoncé's and the Chris Rocks and the P. Diddy's and all these dudes that went to college and all that. I guess maybe they got to do inside work or something, because they think that they better than niggas. They were raised in the ghetto, raised by single mothers, never met their fathers, beat as kids, beat by police, go to schools where, man, come on, man. I'm done. I done talked enough. But yeah, this is part 2, man, and like I say, man, I'm on the verge of hating Barack Obama. I never would have voted for him because I wasn't stupid. I knew that he was raised in Hawaii by white people. And I read his books, and his books sounded like the same. He sounded like my teachers. Some of my teachers that thought all of our problems could be solved if she just gave us hug and cookies. She go home every night, and we go home every night. We hang out until the street lights come on because we don't want to be in there. Kids that grew up without allowances and color TVs and families, you know, none of the people, man, none of the cats I grew up with. You know, you could tell some of the cats I live around now, yeah, man, I didn't grow up with a color TV. And they're like, man, you're lying. Come on, you had a color. Man, not only did I not have a color TV, probably the vast majority of the houses in my neighborhood, didn't nobody had no color TV, didn't have no cable. And sometimes you wouldn't have heat. When I was a kid, I hope it ain't like this no more, but you're a little late on the rent, the landlord could turn off the hot water. He could turn off the water. He could turn off the heat. And it get cold in Chicago, man. Chicago ain't Hawaii. It get cold in Chicago, man. And all this stuff builds up the rage, man. You go to these schools, you watch the news, and how do you think that makes you feel? If you in a neighborhood where let's say for instance, you in a neighborhood where you know 15 people were murdered, and you didn't see not one of them on the news, not one of them in the newspaper, and you know for a fact that at least 15, and that's a pretty low estimate, man. You know, I'm just trying not to be outrageous here, but just let's say, for instance, you went to school and 15 people you know got murdered that year, and not one of them was mentioned on the news. And if they was mentioned on the news, it was just to make them seem like a criminal and make it seem like some hero killed them. How would you feel? How would you, if you grew up in that neighborhood and you turn, as soon as you turn 12, 13, 14, people start treating you like a criminal. It's a self-fulfilling prophecy, man. Hey, America, how about this? Let's do an experiment. White America, middle class America. How about this? When your daughter turns 12, call her a whore every single day until she moves out your house, and see if it affects her behavior. Do that experiment. You had 2 daughters. You call one a whore every single day from the age she turns 12 to the time she grows up. And see what happens. See what happens. And that's what you do to these young black boys. Like I say, every time a group of 12, 13-year-old boys walk past you and you push your power lock button, man, that's such a slap in the face. Oh, really? So we really are stupid. You got the door locked. I was about to carjack you, but you locked the door now. Uh-oh. You little, man, you know, I wasn't even paying you no attention, but you popped them locks. Now I want to shoot you in the face. I want to shoot you in the face now because you just insulted me for no reason. I'm just walking down the street. Every time a group of black boys is walking down the street and the police walk up to them, hey, where you going? What you doing? What y'all up to? What do you got in your pockets? Let me see that bag. Y'all got any identification? No, I don't got no identification. I'm 13. The hell you mean I got some? No, I don't got identification. I'm 13. I ain't got no identification, man. What are y'all doing here? Do y'all live around here? Where do you live? Every time you do that, you pour gasoline on this anger. And, you know, I moved out the hood. I don't live in the hood no more. And I recommend to anybody still in the hood, if you could get out, man, you try, man. You try, man. One step at a time. Get up out that city, man. But, you know, that's what you got to do. Start treating these young black children like humans, man. Stop treating them like humans. Stop treating them like dogs. Get a hold of these police officers in Chicago. Everybody knows how the police act in Chicago, and that's why they're not going to solve this murder. Police ain't going to solve this murder in Chicago. Y'all better hope that this dude feels guilty, and he's not, as long as y'all talking the way y'all talking. Oh, he killed a good girl this time. He ain't going to turn himself in. And you know what? If he around a bunch of niggas, they're not going to turn him in. And if he was a dark Hispanic, or maybe even not even a dark Hispanic, sometimes blacks and Hispanics, we get mistaken for each other. And in that neighborhood, you know, from what I heard, man, I would be more inclined to believe that was a Hispanic, man. You know, how do you know there wasn't a white supremacist dressed up like a black person? A lot of those things sound much more realistic than y'all say somebody that was his drug. He was selling drugs in that park, so he goes and murders somebody in his park where he's selling drugs. So now he can't, come on, man. That don't even sound right to me. I don't think this. Y'all explanation sounds so retarded. It sounds like y'all got y'all heads so far up y'all asses, man. I don't know why the little girl got shot. Maybe it was exactly what you say. Maybe some drug dealer was like, "Hey, there's drug dealers in my park, and I sell drugs there, so I'm gonna shoot them right here in broad daylight, and I'm gonna run off." And nobody know. So the dude who was selling drugs in that park, nobody know who it is, huh? Yeah, yeah. Come up with some better theories, people. But yeah, I don't see y'all solving that case, especially with your head up your ass. But I just had to make this video on behalf of the 14,968 people that were murdered between 1990 and 2012. I have to say, fuck you, America. They didn't deserve to die. Because that's what you're saying, and that's what your news coverage is saying. This girl actually sung at Obama's inauguration, and she got killed. So she didn't deserve to die. She was innocent. Unlike my niggas. Hey, y'all really want to solve this problem? Stop talking about us and start talking to us.